deep in the heart of the Peruvian Amazons, an ongoing battle for survival. These tribes came out of the jungle to defend what they believe is the right to their ancestral land. For 2 months, Mario Pizango has been living on this road.
We are here for our land, that's why we are fighting. Lots of companies are entering our territories, contaminating our land. We don't want violence, we want peace.
Their struggle recently found a global audience when armed police moved in to disrupt the peaceful 2-month-long protest. Dozens were killed in the ensuing violence. The Prime Minister has resigned and controversial laws repealed. But still, the battle for the Amazon continues. An area generally referred to as the lungs of the planet, because over 20% of the world's oxygen is produced here. The Amazon's natural resources have been tempting international corporations for decades, as vast amounts of oil, gas, gold, and uranium, among other things, are known to be hiding in the middle of this enormous rainforest. Last year, President Alan Garcia passed a series of decrees that would open up the Amazons to mining, logging, and oil and gas exploration. Peru signed a free trade agreement with the United States, and some of the disputed decrees were passed to meet with some of the demands. For Garcia, the agreement means progress, but these people know that those laws would accelerate the destruction of their way of life.
Our jungle is a system of bioenergetic corridors, the floor and whatever lies beneath it. The Amazons are the lungs of the world, and once the government starts altering it, with oil drilling and other things, we will all start dying.
And that's why they decided to fight back. We found them in the city of Yurimaguas. They had been blocking the roads for 2 months. Just a few days before our visit, events had spun out of control. On June 4th, police officers armed with automatic weapons and tear gas tried to remove the protesters by force. The protesters were mainly armed with bows and arrows and spears, although some were also carrying guns. A pitched battle ensued, and at least 9 police officers were killed. Later that day, a group of protesters entered a nearby pumping station. They kidnapped a group of police officers and tortured them to death. However, it is the amount of indigenous protesters that died that continues to be unknown, as the reports of abuses started to emerge.
This has gone too far, too far. These people do not wear a crown. These people are not first-class citizens. And 400,000 natives cannot tell 28 million Peruvians that you do not have the right to come here. There is no way this can happen. This is a terrible mistake. And anyone who thinks like this wants to lead us irrationally towards a backward, primitive state.
Days after the incidents, many of those involved in the roadblocks were hiding in this community center, caring for their wounds. Most of them insisted that the government's repression was unlike anything they had seen before.
What happened is unforgivable. There were deaths on both sides. We want to know the truth. There are natives that are missing, and the government is lying.
And that's what many here believed, as they tried to find the members of their community that had gone missing.
71 members of our community came, and now we are missing some of them.
Alan Garcia had to suspend the laws that resulted in the worst political crisis in years. Members of his cabinet had to resign, but he still defended the economic plan that he believes will help Peru out of poverty. Richard Smith is an anthropologist who has worked with Peru's Amazonian indigenous groups for 40 years.
For the first time, they're on the front pages of the newspapers. For the first time, they are prime news on all the news programs, and they're on the lips of most Peruvians at this moment. That has never happened before.
The government tried to blame Bolivia's President Evo Morales for the indigenous protests, but for Richard Smith and many others, this is yet another example of the discrimination that continues to exist in Peru today.
These indigenous peoples can't possibly have thought this up. They don't have the brains, they don't have the capability. There must be someone else behind them, pulling the strings and taking advantage of all of this. And I mean, that's very common kind of thinking here. Indigenous peoples don't think for themselves.
In the last 6 years alone, a shocking 70% of Peru's Amazonian territory has been given over to oil and gas exploration. Many of the concessions were approved in an irregular way. Inevitably, the industries have impacted upon the surrounding protected areas, putting the lives of some 400,000 natives at risk. Through this river, the Pastaza, we're going towards the northern part of Peru, in the border with Ecuador. That's where much of the drilling and exploration is going on. It took us a day to reach Andoas, a city where all drilling has been ongoing for the last 30 years. And despite the presence of this precious commodity, progress has not reached those who need it the most. The city is badly contaminated and most of its people desperately poor. For years, a US oil company, Occidental Petroleum, explored, produced and transported oil from here. They left 9 years ago, leaving a legacy of environmental damage. Now, these installations have been taken over by Argentine Pluspetrol. And since Garcia came to power in 2006, several other companies have started to explore the area. Talisman from Canada, Ramshorn from the United States, and the Anglo-French Perenco are among the 20 companies looking for new sources of oil and gas. And as the exploration has spread, so too has the unrest. Doris Rubio is a firm opponent of the multinationals' presence in her territory. She's a Quechua Indian who was part of a strike against Pluspetrol.
We took over the airport. We were asking for a fair pay. The company only hired the workers for 28 days every year, and they pay about $500. With that, they say they provide jobs, but meanwhile, they are leaving us with nothing.
By doing this, the company manages to not pay medical insurance and other payments required by law. Doris took us to see where it all happened. Her husband, Clever Cruzguardia, led the protest that resulted in the takeover of Pluspetrol's private airport and the death of a police officer. Her husband is now being charged with murder.
We had to escape from here running. The police was running after us, screaming, "Kill them, kill them." They say now we are criminals. They are insulting us. They should recognize our rights. They said that they would build a medical post, a school. If you see the school they have built us, it's an embarrassment.
Doris says that because of oil drilling, they cannot grow their own food anymore. The bananas are small and sour.
Y eso pues se daría cuenta la empresa lo que está haciendo. Y todavía el gobierno más quiere.
What are we going to live from? The food is contaminated. We cannot grow our food. To my husband they say he has no degree and nobody gives us work. And the government insists on selling our land.
O sea que están atrapados.
Estamos atrapados aquí, señor.
We are trapped.
Estamos rodeados. No nos dan trabajo.
For Doris and thousands like her, the discovery of oil has proved to be a curse.